So if you have insomnia or you struggle to get to sleep, then you know that all of the basic sleep advice is basic and doesn't always help. It doesn't get to the root cause of things. So that is not what we're going to be talking about in this video. We're going to be looking at the functional medicine side of things, holistic view of the body, what could be causing your sleeplessness, aside from phones in the room, because I know you don't do that. And also going to have a look at the herbal medicine and traditional approaches to sleep. So let's start with blood sugar. So diet and blood sugar, and the gut are a massive part of what we're going to be talking about in this video. Blood sugar is probably the most accessible part of it, the most easiest thing that you can change about influencing how you sleep. So we don't want high blood sugar going to bed. We also don't want low blood sugar. So we want to keep it nice and balanced. And how do we do this? We're going to time the last meal right. And we're also going to have the right balance in the last meal. So the balance in the last meal, let's talk about that. We don't want too high carb because that's obviously going to spike the blood sugar. We want to balance it with some protein, and some fat as well to slow that down. If it is closer to bedtime that you manage to have your meal, then a high carb probably would be better, just because that's easier and quicker for your body to digest. If food sitting in the stomach is quite disruptive to sleep, because that's where a lot of your sleep hormones come from. In fact, your gut produces 400 times the amount of melatonin, which is obviously the sleep hormone, than your pineal gland. So if you've got a load of food bubbling around in there, then your gut's going to really struggle to produce the hormones that are needed. So we want something that's quick and easy to digest if we're getting close to the bedtime mark, but ideally we would aim for sort of 3 or 4 hours before bedtime. Then let's talk about this timing. So we don't really want to have it too close to bedtime, for the reason previously mentioned, but also for the blood sugar spikes that can interrupt stress hormones as well. And the other thing that people don't always talk about is we don't want to have the meal too early either, because imagine when you're going throughout your day and you skip lunch or you skip a meal or something for 4 or 5 hours, and you start to get really like hangry, like tense and like stressed. Well, this is obviously what's going to happen. Same thing at night time. If you have your last meal too early, and then you're going to start to get a bit stressed, cortisol's going to rise, because you're on the lookout for food, then yeah, that's obviously not going to be very good for sleep. So timing the meals, probably the most accessible thing you can access for blood sugar levels for sleep. Also, having your meal too close to bedtime can cause nocturia as well. So you can be waking up needing to go to the toilet. So if that's something that you're doing, if you do have nocturia, then have a look at what time you're having that last meal. Play around with that. Interestingly, some studies have linked sleep apnea with insulin resistance. They are normally independent from each other, but they just sort of, they're correlative, they correlate, rather than causative. Really hard words to say. But one theory as to how insulin resistance can be can cause sleep apnea is because some theories believe that the first place that you gain weight is on the back of your tongue. This is especially prevalent in traditional medicine. We understand that the tongue is the immediate reflection of what's going on in our body. So the first place that we gain fat is on the back of our tongue. We gain fat easier with insulin resistance. So if you've got this, if you started to gain fat, obviously you don't continue to gain fat on the back of your tongue. It's just an acute primary thing. Just for anybody worrying about, getting a fat tongue. Anyway, when you start to gain fat at the back of your tongue, you can imagine you tip your head back, and that's going to block your airways. So this is sort of one way that insulin resistance can be causative to sleep apnea. We do know that it can be the other way around as well. That's more obvious. If you have sleep apnea, you're not breathing properly in the night, then that can cause insulin resistance. So just another reason to tape your mouth, or I think you can get these snore things that help you to breathe during the night. Anyway, whole other subject. Okay, so that is some to do with blood sugar. Now we're going to have a look at light. So obviously there's the basic advice: don't use your phone in the bed, don't look at blue lights, turn the lights off, dim them down. That's basic. And we know that that's because of our circadian rhythm and the way that our body produces hormones in response to light changes. We are circadian beings. Everything that goes on in our body is in a response to light. Our mitochondria respond to light. So that's really important. Other ways that we can regulate our circadian rhythm using light can start in the morning. So even if you've had a rough night's sleep, try and get up with the sun, like not mid-morning, like 11, 10. Try and get up a bit earlier if you can. I know, even if it's been a rough night, and get some bright light in your face, like some, you can use, ideally go outside if it's sunny. Maybe not if you live in England. Maybe you need a little bit of help in England. It's never sunny. Maybe you can get like a light box, or you can, if you have a bright strip light, turn that on. Just get some bright light directly into your eyes first thing in the morning. The thing with circadian rhythm is it's timed. So this is why we don't want to be waking up late in the morning, because we are not going to feel tired at the right time for bedtime, because it's timed. It's like the light triggers a timer for you to feel sleepy again. So we want to get that early morning light. The other thing about light is that we have receptors around the eyes. So light from above, i.e. where the sun would be if we were humans living outside, that triggers a wakefulness. It inhibits melatonin. So as you're progressing through the day, if you're predominantly inside based, then you can start to move the light physically downwards. You can dim it as well, that really helps, copy the sun, but move it downwards. So one way that I do this is, if I have the light on, sort of mid-afternoon, I turn the light off. Getting later into the evening, I'll put some lights on the floor, so some lamps, like my bedside lamp, put it on the floor, then the light's coming up from underneath, so your eyes are no longer perceiving it from above. You can also use candles around the room. They're really good, the red light. So some ways that you can kind of hack your biology using light there. Generally, studies on light and sleep have been conducted on rodents who are both nocturnal and colourblind. So the studies we have on light affecting our circadian and our sleep are not that robust, but these things are quite practical. You can see the way that light changes behaviour. Red light, interestingly, that's been a trend at the moment. It's super good for lots of other health stuff, but it doesn't necessarily promote sleep. It just doesn't inhibit it like blue light does. So it's not like you turn your red light on, you're going to feel sleepy. It's just that it's damage control. It's damage control, basically. Okay, so yeah, get your light box early in the morning. The other thing that affects circadian rhythm apart from light is food. So if you have your breakfast 20 to 30 minutes before you wake up, after you wake up, that's going to really influence your circadian rhythm as well. Remember, this is hormones that is creating the circadian rhythm, and we can really effectively influence the hormones through light, through stress, and through food. Next, we're going to talk about sex hormones. These are quite often the cause of sleep issues and insomnia that are not obviously caused by circadian disruptions. So we know, it's obvious that sex hormones disrupt sleep, because we can see that in menopausal women, they have sleep disturbances. We can see that on people, women who get their period. I definitely get disrupted sleep when I'm on my period, and there's a reason for that. The progesterone is lowest a week before your period, and progesterone creates relaxation and sleepiness through increasing GABA. Some herbs also increase GABA. We will come back to this later. GABA is a really basically relaxing neurotransmitter. Therefore, you can kind of interpret that sleep issues to do with sex hormones could be a result of progesterone deficiency. If you're not feeling relaxed and feeling sleepy, could be progesterone deficiency, which could be an isolated progesterone deficiency, which is more rare, or it could be an estrogen dominance that's causing the progesterone deficiency, which that's more common to have an estrogen dominance. And low progesterone, if it is the low progesterone in ratio to estrogen, can also increase cortisol, which obviously increases stress, so increases anxiety as well. There is a relationship between PCOS and sleep apnea as well, but from my understanding, it's related to that insulin sensitivity, and obviously not everyone with PCOS has insulin sensitivity. And yeah, one other thing we're going to talk about testosterone as well. Obviously, everyone has all of these hormones. Testosterone is not just a male hormone. Progesterone is not just a female hormone. We have all of them in different balances, but obviously higher in females, higher in males. So you can kind of separate them like that. Anyway, testosterone can disrupt sleep dramatically if it's lower or higher. Obviously, if it's higher, you're going to be full of testosterone. That's obvious. But also, low testosterone can be really stressful as well. Low testosterone leads to worse sleep, and can cause nocturnal awakening and worse sleep efficiency, because, interestingly, testosterone is an antagonist to cortisol. So less testosterone, more cortisol. So either way, these hormones are very pernickety. They need to be balanced just so. They are the most delicate system in the whole body. And unfortunately, we live in a world that's constantly disrupting them, so that's helpful. We'll come on to some helpful facts, helpful tactics to manage this in a minute. I'm talking all doom and gloom at the moment. So, okay, back to the conversation. One thing about recovery sleep. So, in chronic insomnia, long-term sleep issues, there tends to be a point where the body just goes, I need to sleep, and it just sleeps really, really well for one night. This is called recovery sleep, and it's not sleep. It's not real sleep. Unfortunately, that's the vicious thing. Recovery sleep after a period of sleep deprivation is different from normal sleep. It's not as effective. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at some metabolic issues then. We know that this way round, we know that sleep dysregulation, sleep disruption disrupts your gut microbiome. So when you're not getting good sleep, your gut microbiome is also getting messed up. Unfortunately, that's probably to do with the stress and the inflammation and the inability for the body to kind of detox and process that, because the body does that during the sleep. But it does also work the other way around. So if you have chronic gut microbiome dysregulation, that is definitely going to disrupt your sleep. I mean, we know this, right? Like, after we've had a really bad takeaway or something, then our gut's just going all night, and it's, yeah, we know this intuitively. Okay, so the diversity of your gut microbiome improves sleep. This is the really key thing here. The diversity is the thing that improves sleep. It's the thing that improves all factors of all pillars of health as well. Diversity really is key when it comes to the microbiome. And interestingly, little side tangent, the microbiome is now on the frontiers of new medicine. My elbow just clicked. Being considered a organ in and of itself. So we soon we might have reference to the microbiome organ. Very exciting. Anyway, your microbiome organ needs to be diverse. That's how it survives. That's how it thrives. It thrives on diversity. The same study that I'm referencing that found that the diversity of gut microbiome improves your sleep also found that it improves abstract thinking capability. That's really interesting. How, I mean, it suggests that diversity in your microbiome organ impacts cognition, impacts creativity, impacts your ability to thrive and create your own world. But that's a whole other esoteric topic. So, a different study proved that high fiber diets increase the amount of specific bacteria that improves sleep efficiency. They also found specific bacteria that correlates with snoring. This is a super exciting thing about your microbiome becoming recognized as an organ. Yeah, super interesting. So high fiber diets, my theory is that that's twofold. One reason that high fiber is going to improve your sleep is that it's going to improve detoxification. So a lot of the times we don't have high fiber diets and the fiber just gets stuck. Not the fiber, the metabolic waste just gets stuck in the intestine. So the only thing that is going to pull the metabolic waste through the final phase of detoxification, phase 3, is fiber. And we don't have enough fiber. And fiber can come from vegetables, from fruits, from grains, oats, all of this. Beans, they're super. And that's the only thing that's going to pull that out of the last phase of detoxification. That's why you get constipated when you don't have enough fiber, because pooing is the last phase of detoxification. I was just beating around the bush a little bit there. So that could be why fiber improves sleep, because if you think about it, if it's stuck here, not getting pooped out, detoxed, then it's just going to be, hormones are just going to be recycled. You're going to get hormone imbalances, you're going to get estrogen dominance, cortisol, so you need to be pooing, and fiber can definitely help that. Another reason fiber can help is fiber is prebiotic, so that's going to help your gut microbiome diversity as well. So get your beans, or if they make you fart, get some oats. Something that is a bit more intuitive is that an inflamed gut and gut dysbiosis can lead to disturbed sleep and disturbed circadian rhythm. Interestingly, we have this thing about night owl behavior and mood disorders. It's still kind of a contentious topic, but when there is an idea that when people say they have night owl behavior, it's actually not them that's the night owl, it's their gut bacteria that are night owls. So each bacteria has its own circadian rhythm, which can influence us. The thing about this is that our microbiome organ is bigger than we are, so we have more bacteria in us than we have human cells. So this is getting very esoteric, but the way, if you think about that, we have more bacteria than we have human cells. The bacteria have their own little life going on. They have their own circadian rhythm, they have their own detox pathways, they do their own thing. We then are influenced by that more than we are influenced by our own body. So if we are a night owl, is that natural? Is that biological? Is that what we would have evolved to be? Or is that the influence of our bacteria? I believe it is, but obviously there's not been proven either way. So just an interesting thing to consider. Are you a night owl or are you being controlled? Okay, so there's an interesting thing here about how this all works. So gut bacteria ferment fiber, so they eat the fiber to produce short chain fatty acids. Short chain fatty acids then are signals that can influence the expression of circadian genes. These play a central role in regulating the circadian, obviously. Butyrate, which is a short chain fatty acid, you might have heard of butyrate as a supplement, has been shown to regulate clock gene expression in the colon, so clock gene, circadian gene expression in the colon. The gut microbiome itself has its own circadian rhythm, which with fluctuations in the abundance and activity of various microbial species over a 24-hour period. This inevitably interacts with the host's own circadian rhythm. So that's just a little explanation of how this is all supposed to be working. One more thing on this is that this 24-hour period, they have observed that you can change your gut bacteria in 24 hours. You can influence in, well, less than 24 hours. Every time you eat, you're influencing your gut bacteria. So you can start to change who you are and how you behave in 24 hours. No excuses. Cool. So, yeah, this jury's still out on whether gut bacteria can influence sleep apnea as well. Obviously, they've apparently found some bacteria that relates to snoring. I'm yet to understand how that works. Let's talk about some blood tests. If you're too sleepy and you're not sleeping enough, then some blood tests that I would recommend checking: full panel of thyroid levels, check for hypothyroidism. You want to be checking your T3, T4, reverse T3 ideally, and TSH. Doctors here in the UK, I know at least, will only check the TSH unless you specifically push for the others. But TSH doesn't really tell you anything. So TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, is going to tell you if your pituitary is stimulating your thyroid. That's it. Doesn't tell you what your thyroid is actually making, T3, T4. Doesn't tell you if this T3, T4, well, T3 is the active one, is being used in your body. Doesn't tell you if it's being converted. All of this hormone doesn't get used straight away. It gets converted in the liver, in the heart, in all of your gut. Doesn't tell if it's being converted. So you want the full panel to understand what's really going on. So thyroid panel, we want to check iron, definitely. So anemia can be a big contribution. Ferritin and B12, different types of anemia. Inflammatory and immune markers, depends how far you want to go. Glucose and fasting glucose for unmanaged prediabetes, if you are thinking that your metabolism and that thing we talked about right at the start is something to do with it. Vitamin D, if you think your circadian rhythm is something to do with it, especially if you live in somewhere seasonal like the UK. Okay, if you are not sleepy enough, you're not feeling sleepy, then sex hormones would be the one to go down, or thyroid as well, maybe hyperthyroidism. Obviously there's a full load of other clinical signs that come with this, but if you're somewhere where you can access blood tests for cheap or easy or free, then why not? So yeah, sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. Okay, so let's talk about some actions. Let's take some action. We've talked all doom and gloom and interesting stuff actually, but let's talk about some action. So if we're going to start with the gut health, the basics would be to obviously get rid of inflammatory foods that might be causing damage, might be causing some problems. So we all know what these are. I'm not going to go through that, we know. Eat some fermented foods if you can. They can be problems for people if you have gut dysbiosis already, because you are feeding the dysbiosis. So there's a functional medicine, what's the word? Functional medicine, like step-by-step thing that you can do. Weed weed it out. So weed out the problem first. So get rid of your inflammatory foods. Get some nice cleansing herbs in there, which we can talk about in a minute. Then you put the good stuff back in. So this is going to be your fermented foods and um, fibrous foods as well. Yeah, we'll talk about all of this in detail in a minute. So that's just the basics of gut health. Diversity, again, really, really important. Diversity of fruits and vegetables. Diversity of your microbiome comes down to your air as well. Okay, so the microbiome is not just in your gut. Your microbiome is everywhere. We have isolated microbiomes in our nose, in our mouth, in our eyes, in our skin, and it's all part of this one big organ microbiome. I feel like we need like a sparkly title: microbiome, the organ. So we can influence the microbiome through the gut, but we can also influence it through going out into nature, breathing in some fresh air, lying in the sun, being next to different types of trees, different types of plants, getting soil on your fingers, having house plants, having one of those essential oil diffusers, not putting shit on our skin. YouTube's going to censor me for that. Not putting bad stuff on our skin. Coconut oil on our skin, that's a plant. Yeah, so all of these different ways that we can influence our microbiome. Okay. So the difference between getting to sleep and staying asleep, there is a difference, and the quality of sleep. If you're struggling to get to sleep, then it's likely a hormonal imbalance. Yeah, so you're struggling for your body to actually feel like if it's cortisol, actively feel like it's safe enough to fall asleep, or you're struggling for your body to produce melatonin that allows you to fall asleep. So getting to sleep issues, probably hormonal. This can be approached through regulating hormones. Yeah, so waking up at a set time, eating at set times, regularly eating, strong breakfast, starting with that bright light, dimming the lights throughout the day, and just balancing hormones through lifestyle, activity, and diet. Herbal medicine is less likely to be effective in this case, that it's a hormonal imbalance, circadian, because it's very much lifestyle driven. Obviously, there's some herbs that can help. If you're struggling to stay asleep, this is more likely to be psychological. So dealing with stress perception is a huge thing as well. So maybe you are going through something stressful, but it's 10 times more stressful because you perceive it to be life ending, like anxiety kind of thing. And I definitely do this. There's ways that we can manage our stress through our perception. And I think that's a key part that everybody misses when we talk about stress, because we cannot stop the stress. You go to a practitioner, like a health practitioner, and they say, I think you're a bit stressed, you need to calm down, you need to stop the stress. It's like, okay, let me just cancel my life. So actually, maybe it's not about getting rid of the stress, maybe it's about the way that we perceive the kinds of stress that are being put on us and the way that we manage that. Veering away from the therapy a little bit. If you're struggling to stay asleep, probably psychological. Your body doesn't feel safe enough to stay there. So this can respond quite well to herbal medicine. We can approach reducing bodily tension, reducing the muscle like smooth muscle tension, reducing nervous system tension, which cross talks with the muscles. We can reduce anxiety in the body. Also nightmares, that's a really interesting topic. Let's veer off a little bit quickly here. Nightmares can be a manifestation of tension and stress in the body. My dad always used to say they could be because I had cheese before I went to bed. There is something about that. The dairy, the hormones make you have nightmares. Nightmares can come from gut problems. I've personally found, there is nothing to back this up, I've personally found nightmares can come from inflammation in the body, particularly in when the gut's struggling. Just something interesting there, because obviously the gut is our second brain. So that's my theory. If you're having nightmares, it means your sleep is likely disturbed as well, but herbs are very effective for nightmares. Nutrition is super important for relaxation. So your minerals and your vitamins, super important for relaxation and for nightmares. I believe, I'm going to get this wrong now, but I do believe there are some studies that demonstrate nightmares are correlated with magnesium deficiency, and for some reason I'm thinking calcium deficiency as well. Some quite common nutrients and minerals that can lead to nightmares. Vitamin B, vitamin B, vitamin B can lead to nightmares. Okay, so the herbs, my favourite bit. So herbs by categories. Herbs for getting to sleep. So getting to sleep, as we said, tends to be hormonal related. You need low enough levels of cortisol, high enough levels of melatonin. And how can we manage this through herbs? There is nothing that will directly affect melatonin or cortisol. Nothing that's going to directly affect that. Okay, ashwagandha regulates cortisol. We don't really know how. We call these amphoterics. They kind of read the body. They decide whether it goes up or down. No scientific study has ever been able to conclusively say ashwagandha is doing this to cortisol. It just reads the body. So that's the only one I've ever heard of that can affect cortisol and melatonin. There's nothing that you're going to take and then suddenly you get boosted melatonin. That's not going to happen. There are, however, a few that can affect neurotransmitters such as that GABA that we mentioned earlier. Let me try and remember what GABA means. Gamma? No, forget that. I don't know. Okay, so what affects the GABA neurotransmitter? Valerian is a key one here. So studies on large populations show that valerian improves all stages of sleep. It lengthens deep sleep, allows you to get through all sleep stages where some pharmaceuticals don't. Indicated for an energized body, energy. It's indicated for energy that's moving up towards the head because it's a really heavy, dragging feeling. It's like a hot, sweaty, heavy blanket, which is why it's so good for anxiety, because if your heart's going, like I get this sometimes and my heart's, and valerian is just, if you've ever smelt it, if you've ever smelt valerian, it smells like a smelly gym sock. It's disgusting, but it really is. Okay, yeah. I'm trying to explain that it's kind of relaxing. It's really homely, relaxing, but yeah, also smells like a gym sock. Okay, so it's just think, when you think valerian, just think like that pressure, like a heavy pressure. So this is what it's specific bodies that it's indicated for. One thing that I did not mention about sleep, let's circle back quickly. If you find that you're not feeling sleepy and you've tried everything else, or maybe you haven't, have you tried, bear with me, have you tried doing more in the day, right? Because the way that sleep works, I know some people are screaming at the screen going, no, it's not that simple. But it could be. Because the way that sleep works is you have a store of energy, of ATP, and as the ATP gets used up in the day, as you're doing stuff, as you're walking around, you're thinking hard, studying, you're working, you're going for a run, going to the gym, whatever, you use this energy, it gets broken down. As you use this energy, The waste product is adenosine, and the adenosine is the thing that makes you tired. So it's this really clever mechanism in the body where things get this energy gets broken down. The byproduct is the thing that makes you sleepy. If you are not using this energy in the day, you are not going to have so much of this adenosine. You're not going to have so much of this sleepiness. Interestingly, another side tangent. I know we've been on so many side tangents so far. Another one. This is the way that coffee works. Coffee keeps you awake. It does not give you energy. It blocks adenosine. It blocks blocks the adenosine. So you just don't feel tired. That's why you have a crash after the coffee, because the coffee comes into the adenosine receptors and stops the response to adenosine, but it doesn't totally fix there and block there. It eventually gets washed away into the bloodstream, and as that gets washed away, that's when you start to like feel, oh my god, tired, because all of these receptors are suddenly becoming available. So back to my original point, have you tried burning off that energy in the day? Because I know most of us live sedentary lifestyles. So maybe you just don't need as much sleep as you think you do. So just a nice accessible thing there. Back to the herbs. So valerian, incredible. Increases GABA, warm heavy blanket, pushing you down, reduces anxiety. Water extractions are preferable as the constituents are lost in the drying process. The interesting thing with valerian is that 8 out of 10 people, it's great. It really sedative. 2 out of 10 people will get wired off of it. Now, there is a theory that valerian is a very hot herb. So if you're a really hot constitution kind of person, then you're going to get even hotter with this valerian, more activated. So I would just say if you're a cold person, it's probably the best one for you. If you're a hot person, maybe don't try it for the first time at night before you're going to go to sleep. Okay. Next one is hops. This is obviously the one that we use to make beer. Beer is quite soporific. Or is it somniphoric? Soporific? I can't remember. It's associated with relaxing digestive spasms and discomforts. Matthew Wood, amazing herbalist, indicates that hops are beneficial for intense personalities with intense and overwhelming emotions. Hello, my Scorpios. I am a Scorpio too. So anybody who's a really intense person, hops is apparently indicated here. Very cooling, suited for people who feel hot and restless and fired at night. So maybe your night owls, they would do good with this one. It is contraindicated in pregnancy because it is also a phytoestrogenic. So if you are having estrogen dominance, then this could support as well. So if you're having any of those hormonal imbalances we talked about earlier, maybe hops is the one for you. Okay, wild lettuce. I love wild lettuce. For me, it's the strongest one that I've ever found. Really, really sedative. It's the one, if you've ever read Beatrix Potter, it's the one where the rabbits are in Mr. McGregor's garden and they're nibbling on the lettuce and then they just crash out, and then one of them ends up in a pie because you snooze, you lose. So this is wild lettuce. Really knocks you out, especially if you're a rabbit. And I really was going to try and do this video as professional, but it's just not my character. So wild lettuce, very cooling, very bitter. So again, if you're a hot person, very draining. Sleep is cold. Sleep is a cold state. Yeah, that's why night sweats wake us up. We need to be cold to sleep. That's why you sleep better in a cold room. Yeah, it's better for you. Coldness and bitterness is also the relaxed state of the nervous system. So if you ever have a wired nervous system, like in stress or anxiety, take some bitters, something cold. That's going to really douse you down. So wild lettuce can calm anxiety and nervous tension, can be analgesic and great for sedating pain, has a similar chemical structure to opium, but it's not opium. and it's not appropriate for sensitive types because it can be psychoactive. That is one thing. It's very strong sedative, but it can also be psychoactive. And if you're sensitive, don't be shocked if you have some pretty wacky dreams. Yeah, so go careful with that one. Take a small dose. Next, we have Californian poppy, which I find is also quite strong, like really similar, related to wild lettuce for me, I think anyway. Also, I find psychoactive. Interacts with GABA again, so we've got that GABA interaction, makes you feel more relaxed. It is a family. It is part of the poppy family, related to the opium poppy. We all know what opium poppy is used for, hopefully. It does not have opium in it, but it can trying to remember, does it have, there's something about the poppy seeds that might have a little bit of opium in them. Not going to talk any more on that because I might get in trouble. We just say it's like opium. It does behave like opium. It's associated with pain and anxiety and just deep, dark depression, emotions that are keeping you awake. And can be used in similar cases as one would use opium. So if you're in pain that's keeping you awake, then Californian poppy is going to be the one. It really is. I know I was talking about opium, but it really is gentle, and you can use it on kids. So hopefully that testifies its gentleness. It's not opium poppy. So for staying asleep, let's move to the next category. For staying asleep, so remember, this is to do with anxiety. This is to do with psychology, stress. Passion flower is going to be our first one. So if you've ever seen a passion flower, stunning. Just go and Google it now, but come back to this video because we have stuff to talk about. So passion flower is all beautiful, purpley, wiry, like, oh, it's just God's best flower. Really did well with that one. And the way that it's purple and entangled really represents the mind, like tangled thoughts. And it does so well at detangling these thoughts and really draining the brain. Does have direct action on the GABA receptors as well, so it does have a physiological response. Also indicated in untangling anxious, racing thoughts. You can tell by just looking at its purple, spiraling frills, just like my brain. It's indicated for frayed nerves, so somebody whose nervous system's just really like so much. Anxious overload, right, rather than a blockage. Okay, so sometimes we get anxious, we get stressed from an overload, but passion flower is really indicated. We get anxious and stressed from a blockage, like energy blockage, or I just can't deal with this right now, or like lethargy. No, passion flower is indicated for that overload, that overwork, that nervous system that's just fraying at the edges. And a special indication for reducing anxiety that might jolt you awake. I've been getting a lot of this recently with exams coming up, and just, waking up, you're just drifting off to sleep, and then you go, oh my god, I haven't revised enough. This kind of anxiety that, is good for this. Skullcap is the next one. Skullcap is traditionally associated with type A personalities. We all know one of them. I am not one of them. Really like everything's in their box, Virgo-ish, Capricornish energy. It's bitter, it's cooling, it's a nervine relaxant, works especially well for headaches. So think about the name, Skullcap. If you've got lots of thoughts going on in there, you just need someone to just cap it. Skullcap is great. Pairs well with valerian, where valerian can actively make you feel dozy. So if you have a valerian drink, you're going to feel a bit woozy. Skullcap just reduces the anxiety and the tension. So you have a drink of Skullcap, you're just going to feel like chill. It's like CBD. Okay. Then we have mugwort. This is a really psychoactive one. Mugwort can be associated. I would use mugwort for someone who is experiencing sleep issues around to do with their menstruation, so sleep issues around their period, because it can also help with menstruation. Lemon balm is a really nice nervous system calming, central nervous system calming, reducing muscular tension and anxiety. Also lavender as well is a really strong nervine. Okay, so let's have a look at some other supplements that you can kind of look at. We can tape the mouth. That's to do with sleep apnea. So if snoring and heavy and breathing is keeping you awake at night, try taping your mouth. Magnesium is essential for sleep if you're not getting enough of it in your diet, or if you have malabsorption, which a lot of us do. This is quite common. We think we're getting enough of it in our diet, but actually our body's not pulling it out, not absorbing it very well because of the environment. Our gut is just inflamed and doesn't always get the nutrients we think we're getting. So magnesium is always a good one to supplement. Oral magnesium is not tolerated very well with most people. It tends to irritate the gut, ironically, because it relaxes everything else. So I would use topical magnesium, the oil. I use it, it irritates my skin, which I've not found with anyone else, but for me it does. So I use it, but I'm determined to use it because it's so good, and I can't have it orally either, but I need my magnesium. So I use it with coconut oil. So I get some coconut oil, get some magnesium in the coconut oil, so it's like got a vehicle to go through the skin with, and I will rub it into my feet. Really, things are absorbed really well on the feet. Yeah, so you can rub garlic onto your feet. You can smell it on your breath. Things are absorbed really well through the feet. So rub it into your feet if you find that it's if you find that your skin doesn't tolerate it or your gut doesn't tolerate it. 50% of what you ingest is not absorbed by the digestive system, so it's always good supplementing. Oxide and sulfate, so magnesium oxide, magnesium sulfate, are the least bioavailable, so your body does not do well getting those. Citrate has the highest bioavailability. Okay, and glycinate is also tolerated very well. Okay. Yeah, so I've covered all of my notes. I would love to know what you use for sleep. I would love to know if you have any more questions. I know we didn't really touch on that many herbs, because this was more about how does sleep work and how can we hack the sleep. Because I think when it comes to sleep, herbs, essentially what they do is they relax the nervous system. There's not really many herbs that are going to directly make you sleepy, or there are, but they're actually illegal. So when it comes to herbalism for sleep, it's more about just relaxing the nervous system and helping you cope with stress. Adaptogens can be really good long term. You've got to use them long term, yeah, so adaptogens aren't going to work in a month. They can be really good. So managing stress, reducing tension, reducing muscular tension, reducing nerve tension, healing the gut, hormone balance, this sort of thing is how you'd approach it. Hopefully that was helpful, and let me know of any questions in the comments. So thank you, and I'll see you again soon for another deep dive.